now start with database connectivity with Python. So let me write one new Python file. This goes like session 10. So having said that, there is one of, let's say, a dictionary called a device, and I'll just take this data from our previous sessions. All right, so this is the data. So there is some data which is available, right? And these are the attributes and these are the values. So key value pair. Now, there may be operations that these details can be saved permanently somewhere in the database, right? So here we are going to introduce something known as database. So what is a database? So it's a collection of tables. So I'm typically talking about RDBMS model, but nowadays we have many other different databases and how you can work with them. So they will provide you different documentations, and RDBMS is relational database management system, and to be precise we are working with MySQL database. So database is a collection of tables, and tables are basically a collection of rows, right? Rows and columns. So columns will be the attribute and rows will be the information. Now, for example, if this data has to be saved in the database in some table, so I can create a table named as devices, and thereafter we can have 4 columns, right? So the first one can be device type, second can go as host, third can go as username, and the last one can go as password. So we can even have some of the row IDs like this. So row ID can become 1. Then the device type can go as Cisco iOS. Host name can go like cisco.domain.com. Username is, let's say, admin, and the password is Cisco123. So this is the structure of your table, guys, right? So this is how we'll be able to see the rows in the table called devices. But the point of concern is, how are we going to do it with Python, and how you can actually work in the database layer. So we have another different language than the Python. We call it SQL. So if you want to work with databases, you need this language called structured query language, which is quite easy a language to understand. It's very high level, and at the same time this is nearly English. So I have this database installed on my system. So I'll open the localhost. So this is the software setup called XAMPP. And in the XAMPP, I can see a tool called PHP MyAdmin, right? So guys, you can install XAMPP on your system, and then you can move into the tool called PHP MyAdmin. So this will take you to the MySQL database console here. So it's a user interface where you can create your databases, and in the databases you can create your tables, right? Now you can go to the databases. So here you write down the name of your database and then say create. So a database will be created. So for example, I have this database called Auridibi. So I'll just remove this table. Okay, so I already have this database called Auridibi, which says that there are no tables in this database. So go to your SQL, which is structured query language here, and now you can write some SQL code to create the table, then put the data into that table. We can even perform other operations like update, delete, and we can even fetch the records from the table, right? So with the help of your structured query language, so we'll be seeing some operations today, right? We'll see how to create tables, then how to insert data into tables, then we'll see how we can update data in tables. We'll even see your delete operation. And lastly, we'll see fetch data from table. So first of all, I'm going to manage these operations in the SQL part in the database layer itself, right? So we'll first of all see in MySQL database how it can be done, and thereafter we'll see it in Python, right? So in the step number 1, let's perform all the above operations in MySQL DB. In our step number 2, let's perform all the above operations using Python in MySQL DB, right? So guys, these are the 2 steps which we'll be doing and we'll be performing today. Okay. Now, moving ahead, XAMPP is one of the softwares which you need to install. And when you install the XAMPP, it will be available on the localhost. So in the XAMPP, there will be a tool called phpMyAdmin, which will take us to the database console. So the phpMyAdmin over here will give you an option to create database under the database section. So you can just give a name and say create, a database will be created. For example, for me it is Auridibe here, right? Now in the database, this guy says that there is no table. So that's what we have discussed here. So what is database? It's a collection of tables. And what is a table? It's a collection of rows and columns. So now we'll see the very first part, creating tables using structured query language. Now creating a table is very simple command in SQL. Create table, the name of the table. So this is how you come up and create the table, right? And then the columns or the attributes, so ID. But here in SQL, you need to specify the type of the column. For example, the type is integer. Then the second column is device type. So this goes like variable character, and let's say the maximum number of characters which can be stored is 256. Now variable character is a data type for the column device type, which ensures that you can store any alphanumeric characters or a string in the device type column. Same way for the host, then for the username, and lastly for the password. So we have all of these as varchars, right? So 256 over here is like the maximum size. But if you are going to put a username of 5 characters, then only the memory with respect to 5 characters will be consumed. So it's an optimization here. So guys, this is the SQL command, how you can create a table in the database. I think this is very fairly and near to the English, but at the same time, if you have to create tables in your databases, so you need to ensure what is that data which you want to store. So these guys over here, device type, host, username and password, they become the attribute or the column name. Now ID, I have taken up myself in an extra manner. So ID, I am going to make it as primary key. So what does this mean now? This means that if there is a row with ID as 1, there cannot be any other row with ID 1. So this becomes unique. So it will ensure that in your table, if you have multiple rows, no row with the same ID will be existing again. And for my easier part, I'm going to make it as auto underscore increment, which means I need not to insert the value for ID. It will automatically begin from 1 and keep on going till the end. Okay, so guys, is this create command clear to everyone in structured query language? So if you want to anytime create a table, so this is the SQL command. Can I get one acknowledgement from all? So Arvind, this part is clear, buddy? All right. Now I'll just take this command and I'll come to my database, select my database here. So this is my database. Go to the SQL and paste this command here. So create table, devices, ID, integer, primary key, auto increment, device type, host, username, and the password, right? The last thing will be where I'm going to just hit this button called go. Here, if you can see, so I'll just say go. And when you will say go, so it will show you that a table has been created, and you see in my Auridibi database, I have this devices table which is created for us. So now, once you have created a table, you can see the structure of this table here, that it has 5 columns with the data types specified here, right? So this guy ID is integer type and it is auto underscore increment as an extra. Now, what is the next part?
Yes. So Ishan, this varchar is variable character, right?
Yes, varchar is variable character. So when I say varchar here, it's variable character. It's a textual data type. It's a string.
Okay, and this 256, it is the length or it is the memory we are?
It's both basically. So when I say length of a username as a column, it means 256 is the maximum length, which means the size should be 256 characters maximum.
Okay, so this is characters. Actually, it's not actually the memory.
Now, at the same time, one character means 1 byte, right? So let's say 256 bytes of memory.
Okay, maximum is 256. Okay.
Yes, right. So, but in case the string is going to take only 5 characters, so the space of only 5 will be consumed. It's not like that. 256 has been reserved. So that's why the term is variable character. It saves the memory, it optimizes the part of it. Okay. So let us now proceed, guys, further. Inserting the data into the tables. Now this is very simple English. So you say insert into devices the values. So what values you want to insert? So ID will be null because it will be automatically incremented. Then the device name is Cisco iOS. So for the varchar part, you need to put single quotes because it's a string type, not double quotes here, right? So to be precise here, in Python you can use single quote, double quote, triple quote, but in SQL you need to use this single quote as a string or the varchar part. Then we need to put this second data for my host here. Then the third one will be for the username. And the last one is for the password. So it's like fill in the blanks, right? Insert into devices the values. So guys, it's not very difficult language. It's a very, very high level language. And it is very easy to understand for us. So inserting the data into the table is just insert into table name and the values. So null for the ID because it will be automatically getting the value. Then the Cisco iOS is the device type, the host, then the admin, then the password for the values. Let's put this command into our SQL engine. So I'll go to my devices here. You see the SQL part coming here. Remove the old statement, put your statement. So this is my insert statement. And then after doing this, you need to just hit this go button. And when you hit go button, it says 1 row inserted. Now when you will check your table here, so you see a permanent data in your database. So what's the good thing about this point here, right? So when you close this, even if you shut down your system and reopen, right, you go to the local host, then you go to your PHP myadmin, you go to your database, you see the table and you see the data in the table. So it's a permanent storage for your data. Now, anytime in your Python program, when you are dealing with the data, that data is not persisted. To persist the data, you have two different ways. The first way is you save the data in the files. And the second way is a bit more sophisticated, secure, organized. That is known as databases. So in the database, in the table, you save the data in a much more organized form. If you can see here in front of your eyes, right? So let us try to insert one more record. So I'll just use the same statement. So let's say cisco1.domain.com admin1 cisco, let's say 456. So this is one more row which I'm going to put here. So in the devices here, so what you see is the second record automatically coming up as 2 because the ID is auto incremented. So this is another host, another username, another password. So guys, an acknowledgement awaited from all of you. I hope this part is also clear to everyone. How we can insert the data in the database, in the table. The next part is how you can update data in the tables, right? So how you can put the data and you can manipulate the contents of the data is the next part. So I'll say update devices, set, let's say password as pass123 where ID is 1. Or even I can just say update devices, set username as, for example, John, comma password as John123 where ID is 2. So whatever you wanna update, you simply say set command. So this is the name of your column and this is the value, but you put a condition where to update, where ID is 1. Now this is the reason why we created the ID column in our table, because we wanted to uniquely identify each and every record in our table. So we got this guy called ID. So I can now update with respect to the ID. Now IDs, they are working like roll numbers or the employee codes, right? So the salary is supposed to be updated. So we'll use an employee code and we'll update it. So guys, the update command, let us fire them one by one and see if they will bring results for us. So as of now, you see row ID 1, username admin, password Cisco123, and for the 2, username admin 1, Cisco456. Let us try to execute this SQL command 1. So I'll execute this SQL command 1 for the update operation. So it says 1 row affected. Let's go to the devices table. So we see that the password is now pass123. Let us execute the second command. Which will update both the username and the password. So we'll just hit this. Just a moment. So here we are. Okay, so now we'll go to the devices and you see the username and password is updated. John and John 123, right? So this is your update command. So how you are going to perform an update operation in your database. Now before the delete operation, I'll just perform the fetch operation. So fetch operation is quite simple for us, right? So we'll simply say select all from, so star means all from devices. I can even say select only device type and let's say username from devices. And I can even say from devices where ID is 2, or I can say where ID is greater than 1, right? So we can put these filtration conditions as per our requirement. So let us execute few of these commands here. So I'll say select device type and username from devices. So when I will set this button called go here, so what you see is only device type and username coming up, not everything. But in case you say select star from devices, right? If you see, this is by default coming up for us. So this produces all the results. And if you say select star from devices, let's say where ID is equal to 2. So this guy will give me the filtered results only for the ID 2. So this is known as select command, which is used to fetch the data from the tables or from the databases, right? So with the help of select command, we will be able to acquire the results or the desired results as per our need with the where clause here. I can even say where ID greater than 1, right? And conditions, we can have or conditions. We even have much more of the SQL part. So for understanding this SQL in much details, so I'll say W3 schools SQL. So if you wanna just come up and excel in this domain with respect to databases, so this is the entire SQL command list here. If you can see, guys, so you can just browse this part. So I'll just put the link here. Explore more of SQL commands here. Now next is delete from table. So how you can delete the data from table? So guys, I'll simply say delete from table name where ID is 1. It's very simple, right? So you delete on the basis of ID. So we'll say where ID is equal to 1. So coming back here, go to the SQL, delete from devices where ID is equal to 1, hit the go button. It says one row deleted, if you can see, and when you go to the devices table, now there is no record with the ID as 1. So guys, can I get a smiley? Are these SQL commands clear to everyone? Anyone facing any challenge with respect to these SQL commands here, right? So we got these few SQL commands, the very basic commands which we will be using anytime and every time to work with. All right, great. Now the next part of our discussion lies in how we'll be doing this job from the Python program into the MySQL, right? So let me come up here and use one of the illustrators. So what we have is, we have this Python program. So we got a Python program here. And we got a database here. So within this databases, we got some tables. So in the tables, you are going to perform the operations, right? So majorly 4 operations, we call them the CRUD operations, right? This is your database. This is the table within the database, and in the table you will perform CRUD operations, C-R-U-D. So create, retrieve, update, delete. So create is to insert, retrieve is to fetch the data, then update and delete is to perform the respective actions, right? So CRUD operations. Now you actually want somehow this Python program should be interacting with this database. But there is one small challenge here. The language used here is Python and the language used here is SQL. So these are 2 different languages, right? So how these 2 different languages, they are going to interact with each other. So for this, we got a library. Now there is a library which will be created by the database manufacturer, right? So this MySQL DB community, they created this MySQL connector as a library for Python, right? So this is a library. So you cannot directly interact, right? So that's a challenge for us. We cannot directly interact. So this community will give us a library, and this library is something which you need to include in your program, right? So this MySQL connector library is something which you need to include in your program. Now your Python program, so here our Python program interacts with this MySQL connector library, and library will further interact with the database. So this is how it's gonna work for us. And this MySQL connector as a library is developed, maintained, and provided by DB vendor, right? So this is not something which we are going to write and we are going to use. So the database is a product of some company, so they will give us the libraries how we are going to interact with their databases. So guys, anyone with any query here? I hope this architectural part is clear to everyone. So how we are going to come up and do this connectivity? All right, so now let us then see some of the steps which we are going to perform. So I'll come here and create a Python file. Let's say session 10A. Now for this Python file, we'll be writing some steps. So DB connectivity and SQL execution, right? So there are some steps now. So step number 1 is, so you add library that is MySQL connector in your program. So first of all, you need to add the library. Okay. So once you add the library, thereafter the step number 2 shall be to write SQL statement as string in Python program. So in your Python program, whatever the SQL statement you want to execute, so you write that SQL statement as a string. Okay. Now for an example, so I can just say SQL is over here, this part. So SQL is this statement, right? So insert into devices the values. So this is for an example, the step number 2. Then we got step number 3. So in my step number 3, I'm going to create connection with database. In order to create connection with database, right? So we need certain things here. So username to database. Then we need a password to database, right? And then we need a host, that is let's say IP address where DB is hosted. Then we need what exactly is the database name. So these are the few details which you need so that you can perform a connection to the database. So once you create a connection to the database, your step number 4 is where obtain cursor object from connection. Now this guy is used, so this guy is used to perform SQL operations from Python program into database. So this is an API. So last step is to come up and kind of, let's say, close connections with database to release memory resources. So even though you don't close them, right, so your Python program will finish and it will automatically close it. So guys, are these steps clear to everyone? Anyone who is finding any challenge here and there, how we can do this or that? So we will be doing these steps one by one, and hence all the SQL commands basically which you executed right away in your database console here in the XAMPP interface. Now these all commands we are going to use from the Python program, okay? But before we use them, let's have a small break because this is a continuous operation, and after the break we'll do it in the second half. So let's have a small break, guys.